So now on Plone, let's Plone 5.2, we still have our old ZServer, but it only works on Python 2. And on Python 3, we have only option is Whiskey. And well, I was a year late on my work. I was supposed to do this already a year ago. Anyway, I was wondering why was that, why we didn't try to keep ZServer working. Well, I have plenty of use cases. I kind of get loved into ZServer asynchronous core and have solution depending on that. So I kind of need those features in my work in future. And I was thinking that it might be easier to just make the ZServer keep running instead of learning how to make ASCII work with Plone Whiskey and make the same stuff on top of that. So I used 2 sprints during this year to try this out. And I guess I start showing what I have currently. So we have plenty of screens here. We have Plone. This is my development Plone 5.2 and no Whiskey and ZServer and Python 3. And then, for example, we have a Gatsby site here listening to WebSocket port of that Plone server. Let's have Plone here also. And let's open WebSocket Plone to see what kind of things we can do with the new ZServer. And here I have a small script that uploads the stuff to Plone. And it's uploaded to other place at first, and then we see new pages when they appear in that third folder. But we see our WebSocket integration is publishing events for us, what's happening at the Plone. And now that it ends up publishing that folder, we see those live updates. Here we are getting new published content, and also our Gatsby preview can now know that there's updates. It can get the new information and display that for us. So this kind of thing is not possible with the old ZServer on Python 2. And I have no idea how we would make this easily work with Whiskey. And one more example to prove that it kind of works. So here I have an anonymous user on Plone. This is like editor level user on Plone. And here I make a content private at first. Okay, nothing showing anywhere. Now I make it need a review. Okay. I myself as editor code, okay, there's something I need a review, so we could only show the events for myself for the correct permissions, and now I publish it. So now everyone knows there's new public content. And actually, it's built as a content rule, that notification feature, so that whatever happens in Plone, as any SOAP event, we can like hook in that event with content rules and make WebSocket notifications from those content rules, and then do stuff like so silly notification, for example. So that was kind of get you interested what kind of things would be possible by making upgrades for ZServer, as I have done, and keep it working. And I have no idea how, I guess that would be possible with ASCII things on top of Whiskey, but I have no idea how we could make that, and how much work would people make that work on SOAP, instead of what I did in like 2 sprints. Okay, so what I actually did. So, and I don't know why this hasn't been done before. So I looked into ZServer, and I replaced our old Medusa HTTP server with Twisted server. And that was surprisingly easy because Twisted is modeled, Twisted is as old as Plone, and maybe it's not accident that ZServer and Twisted have similar architectures. So they has the same mind model. It was very, very easy thing. And even better, for many years ago, SOAP did already have a Twisted support it was a feature of Soap that you could use Twisted instead of Major ZServer. And that was ripped off at some point, and I have no idea why. And what's even more depressing is that there is nothing Python 3 in my new ZServer. So that could have been done years ago with ZServer for Python 2 and with Twisted. So, okay, I replaced, I have a drop-in replacement for the old ZServer with the Twisted ZServer. Works with normal configuration. But it can also run, the Twisted by default has its own event loop running the server, replacing the async core from Python 2. But it can also use Python 3 async IO loop or even the UV loop that is very optimized IO loop. I haven't benchmarking yet what the difference are between them. I guess the UV loop stuff may serve faster files or something like that. Probably always the Z publisher is anyway the bottleneck on your implementations. And it can also serve asynchronous files, similar to the old ZServer, so you can have as many file downloads as you want and still have those two SOAP threads serving content from Plone. Instead, if you, I tried to go through the deploying Plone documentation in this morning, and I didn't notice that any mention that if you use Waitress as deployment server, you can only serve like the amount of Waitress threads of amount of files at the same time from Plone with the deployment. So by default, it has 4 Waitress threads that makes only 4 simultaneous requests at a time, even if there are files. So if people are downloading the files, that will block your Plone on a Waitress. And there are solutions to fix that on a Whiskey, but I don't know details of those. Okay, so Zcon is configuration as usual. But one thing I try to make more future-proof, I didn't anymore use the old C publisher for ZServer, but I tried to use the new Whiskey publisher so there would be less code to maintain. So try to use all the new stuff as possible. I just translate the Twisted request to Whiskey request for the C publisher to be able to reuse that code. And adding HTTP2 on top of that, it's just a configuration option on Twisted. So it's on the title, HTTP/2 for Plone, but it's just a configuration option for Twisted. So it's not very interesting. On that level, it works on a lower level than C publisher, so it optimized the connection level, but everything is the same on C publisher level, request level. And then make this more interesting. Because now we have Twisted server, we have the Twisted ecosystem there. So we could use a very popular and robust out-of-band Twisted library, WebSocket library with Twisted to have WebSocket features. But then again, only having WebSocket as a feature doesn't do anything. Yes, you can open WebSocket connection, but then what? What do you do with the WebSocket? And I tried to ask for ideas. I get responses like, we could show those notifications. Yeah, wow. But then I had my own use case to make that Gatsby preview thing work, so that we can have live updates for our development servers right from the Plone. And that requires a publish subscribe implementation with WebSockets, so that there can be many clients of subscribing WebSockets events from Plone. And when something happens on Plone, that event is published to that some broker, and notifications are sent for all those subscribers. And there are a lot of solutions for that. Only one that's like only a library, it's ZeroMQ. So that was easy to try. I tried that. And ZeroMQ supports so-called inter-process communication with Unix socket files, Unix sockets. So that should also work in the CO server setup on the same server. So multiple Plone instances on the same server can listen to the same ZeroMQ socket and distribute the messages from the all instances to other instances, to one instance to all instances. So you would have real publish subscribe messaging on a Plone cluster with ZeroMQ. And thanks to this very tight integration with Twisted HTTP server, we don't need like have a specific endpoint for WebSockets, but any address can then serve WebSockets for you. And that can be optimized to make the use more convenient. Like for what I do, when you open a WebSocket at some point, you simultaneously get subscribe to events from that folder and below that. And that's very useful with Gatsby.js. So it by default, I need to design a small protocol that you subscribe to events from that WebSocket server. As it unsubscribe and unsubscribe. It would have more features later, but I tried to do very minimal set to get something working. So when you subscribe to open WebSocket connection, it does subscribe for that address where you did the connection. And then harder part. So for example, in the Gatsby example, I only want to get notification of the pages that the Gatsby server can show you. It's only events that considered that are from the public pages. Or as we saw from the Plone example, the editor got the editor messages and the anonymous user get the anonymous user messages. And well, of course that needs a little bit more processing. So I need to design a protocol that where when the Python code sends a message, so it sends, okay, send that you can show that message so to clients that can pass this card. So when the clients in the server, client connections get those messages, they need to do one HTTP request, one C publisher request to Plone to ask that, does this user have rights to see this message? So they call to endpoint, and if the endpoint gives a response with the named card and with the one of the tokens required, then they can pass the message. And of course, this can be very heavy if you have a lot of clients subscribing to ask for make a T-publisher request for every distribute message. So it goes out of hand very fast. But I think that can be tackled with allowing the server to cache those responses from those cards. So that's what the card can give, that say that, okay, these tokens are valid for some time. And of course, if it's okay to send the message for everyone, then you just add no cards, and then there is no extra load for that. So it just works. So the current status, I have my version at GitHub. For some reason, I still haven't signed any contribute agreements for Soap Foundation, so I cannot touch that code officially, so that's why I have my fork. I try to keep the base on top of the official Soap branch, but I have not managed to put in production yet. So the biggest testing has been done by my summer of code student who used a Docker image based on that from whole the summer and had no issues with that. This does support WebDAV also, but that was only tested manually at Sorrento. And there we fixed some issues with dexterity to make sure that it still works. And because I'm trying to keep my branch like that I can see the changes from the original ZServer branch, I haven't still eliminated all the dead code. So there are all that Medusa Python 2 only code that doesn't work on Python 3. And I guess if I would remove all the dead code from ZServer, it would be very, very thin module after that, because there would be no need for HTTP server there anymore. There are only the bindings from ZServer and cconfig to twist it. And once you get the slides from the internet, there's a list of where my code currently is. So it needs a new server, ZServer, for your build out from my latest branch on that GitHub repository. And then you need a fork of Plone recipe soap instance to allow you to configure Python 3 with Whiskey off. So currently you can't disable Whiskey on Python 3 with Plone recipe soap instance, but with this branch you can. And then there is add-on a collective WS events that does those WebSocket things I showed you previously. So what some of the code students was using these three, the stack Plone 5.2, but only with these three add-ons on top of that customized. And then a couple of extra things. Well, I've been experimenting with it, running and installing Plone with pip only. So I have a package called plonectl that rip off stuff from Plone receive soap to instance and provides an instance script for using instance. So you can run Plone from pip install Plone with that. And then I have added quite popular add-on on old ZServer that does you task queues out of the box with the old ZServer async core for Python 2. And at the Bond sprint, then somehow I started porting that for the new ZServer. And now there is a fork branch that works with the local queues. So I haven't run Redis integration yet, but it's kind of proof of concept that we could build on top of this new ZServer to build new async features. Of course, I have use cases of my own, but I guess this is the most used my library that has been used to do these things. I want to still keep running. So what's happening in official SOAP? So SOAP 4 made a WebDAV dependent on ZServer and separate ZServer from the SOAP 4. And by mistake, they also took the WebDAV out of SOAP because someone thought that the WebDAV is dependent on ZServer. So now if you don't have ZServer, you don't have WebDAV with Plone. And now when on SOAP 5 complete drop also ZServer support, I guess they also drop all WebDAV code. So on SOAP 5 there is no WebDAV anywhere unless someone reverses that mistakes and takes WebDAV code from ZServer back to SOAP 5. And then I need to fix my ZServer branch and not have that duplicated WebDAV code anymore. So I don't know how I should work with that. And why I'm here talking to, I want to have ideas. Of course, I can run this myself at the university whenever I have the next Plone project and keep it hidden on my that it's my ZServer only. But if someone else is interested in it, I would be interested to hear from you how we would make this happen to be more public. So should it be merged in the SOAP Foundation code and how? Technically, who would be interested about that? Of course, the dead code should be eliminated. And then there is a lot of quality assurance stuff to make the release really happen, that the test should pass and have documentation update and everything. Also, that just make a new package and PyPy. Of course, you can have package name can be different from the module name. So I could have like ZServer 5 or something, and on PyPy, ZServer next generation ZServer, all of the renamings, and it still adds that ZServer package on Plone on Python level. And the final thing only is to merge that whiskey off for Plone recipe so to instance to make it run for you. But that's all my slides. So I will, if you want to find these slides, they are available at GitHub. So same address as my first talk on Wednesday, but just /ZServer at the end. But now we have some time for discussion, so I would be interested to hear your comments and ideas. What should we do with this thing?
Any question?
I guess I'm curious, have you talked with the people who were involved in SOAP 5 and asked them why WSGI was necessary? I guess that's one thing I wondered as well, is like why we even spent time going to WSGI.
Well, that's a very good question. I'm an introvert from Finland, so I haven't. Yeah. Somehow I stayed in the Plone community and the SOAP community is in another room, and I never been there.
Yeah, it seems like you should talk to them.
Yeah. Obviously, I should have been at the SOAP sprints for the last 2 years, but I wasn't able to, so I'm disconnected.
In that problem about serving like even just files with WSGI, is that still a problem?
If you know what to do, then it's not a problem.
I have an idea. I wondered if that would be a problem importing to WSGI.
Well, I understood you can, for example, have the name of the file on some header, and then the front-end server will take care of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not ideal, though, either. I think you can do an iterator that's outside.
Yeah, and probably other WSGI servers does that probably. Yeah. But it's not so. Waiters will probably get the iterator, but waiters will keep the thread reserved until it's served. So it's in a way, it's a waitress thing.
It still is, okay.
So you configure 4 waitress threads, and you only have the 4 waitress threads. And a thread is only freed once the file is served.
Okay. So, okay.
So it's a waitress implementation detail.
Okay. So you're saying it could be different on Unicorn or something like
Probably. I haven't tried.
that? Okay.
But maybe if you run the default waitress Plone deployment for Plone 5.2 on Python 3 and wonder if why your site is slower, it might be because of that.
Yes, I attended the sprints at Halle at GoSept, and so I think it was the reason to not port ZServer because it was easier with Whiskey. Not the reason was not that it not was ported because we don't want to, but the current state of ZServer with Medusa and so on was a kind of old code, and now that's not the way we want to do it anymore. And I think nobody had the idea to replace Medusa with Twisted, and it is almost not a. The decision was not like we can't do it, or also the decision was like it's easier with Whiskey, and we have a lot of work to do and not enough time to look deeper into it. And the statement was almost like, if someone wants to do it, go on, but nobody did, and now you did. So I think getting it upstream, yes, why not? I think we can talk to Michael Hovitz and the other guys from GoSept and what they think about it. But yeah, why not? If we can get WebDev support back, great, why not?
So I should get myself to sign the agreement. And is there still a SOAP agreement?
Yeah, there is a ZOP contributor agreement.
Well, that doesn't. The ZOP contributor agreement isn't necessary anymore. It's just a modified version of the Plone contributor agreement that needs to be signed again, and that's not a thing anymore. We solve that tomorrow with you, and we will help you get the things into it if necessary.
So
and
good.
I would say, yeah, please go ahead with that, because I was also like Jens at the Halle sprint, and we looked into, okay, now we run on Whiskey, but we need at a certain point WebDAV. We want also FTTP support and other things. And with Whiskey, it's very hard to get that back. At some point, for some special cases.
I just find it interesting, like, you know, Twisted is this older library that's been around for a while, and we've forgotten about it or something, and like it still has been working for a while, and it's just I don't know, funny to think that. And at one point it did have support for Twisted, and that was removed. It was like just this knowledge lost, and then this tendency to dismiss old proven technology at times.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess they fit well together. They Twisted is as old as SOAP, so old friends find each other again. Reunion after 10 years.
Okay, playing devil's advocate now. What if someone basically port WebDAV to run on Whiskey, and we go for a different Whiskey server than Waitress, one that has support for WebSockets? Instead of having ZServer plus the Whiskey implementation.
Well, I guess moving WebDAV to Whiskey would be easy. That should just work. About WebApp source server, I don't know how WebApp source server should work. About the other, I don't know how ASCII works, how stable it is. I guess it's getting better now with the latest version. But I don't know how it works, so I'm not doing the WebSocket integration. Someone else can do it. I don't know. I cannot estimate how much work that is. So I know WebDAV would be easy to move to Whiskey, and this implemented would just use then that from there. So it would be more no risk for that.
Last question.
Okay.
So there's a couple of issues here. One is typical community super dysfunctionality. For example, there is a training on Plone, training.plone.org that discusses a number of WSGI implementations that we support, and they're documented, Unicorn, Björn, Waitress, and stuff. It would be so cool if people who talk about technology would actually read the documentation that we have about that. This is not against you, Asko. It's just everybody who thinks about this, there's like work being done, and there was done. Please look at that. So the only, I would love to have this upstream as an option. So more options is always good, ... because we need to make a decision what is the default and what we recommend and what we document and train. And at the current state, that is WSGI, that is Waitress as the default release implementation for that, and that's okay. But we can still add these changes. But then, if we at some point decide, okay, let's go back to using ZServer, that needs to be a decision, and then that needs to be put in the documentation and in the training and all these things. We can't just go throw things around without thinking about that, what beginners will want to use. I totally love the additional options it gives us, WebDAV, also the async thing, even though I don't have a use case for either. But yeah. We should get together and talk about that and make a detailed plan what we actually need to change and want to change. And I totally understand that it's not always possible to go to every single sprint, but that's why we document things after sprints and write blog posts about that. And I know you did that too, so not a critique.
Okay, so I would like to end with a shout out that if you are interested to try out that, then contact me somehow, because I would like to have someone other than me to test it. So I can help you get started, and then you can give me bug reports and feedback how it works and what if there are issues of anyhow, what kind of issues you have.
Okay, thank you very much.